Hey folks. So today we're going to cover my Game Boy stuff as far as a series of updated collection videos that are long overdue and things of that nature. And I decided to approach the Game Boy side a bit differently this time around. The way I used to do it is that I would typically do Game Boy Advance as one pile, and then another video would be the original classic Game Boy and Game Boy Color stuff would be bundled in one video. This time around I'm just going to do the original monochrome Game Boy stuff that I got, and then the Game Boy Color is going to be another video, and the Game Boy Advance is going to be another video, so it's going to be 3 Game Boy videos pretty much. So that's the way it is. So we're looking at the monochrome stuff, the original that came out for the original Game Boy or a Game Boy Pocket. Unfortunately, I do not have an original Game Boy or a Game Boy Pocket. I used to have a Game Boy Pocket, a really nice black one, but it went the way of the doo-doo at some point, and I don't have it anymore right now. And the only thing I really got to play these games is a Game Boy Color, along with a Game Boy Player, and these things, which is a Super Game Boy. This is a Super Game Boy for the Super Famicom, and this is the Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo. You can tell because it matches the game pack stylings of their respective regions. So, but they're pretty much the same unit. I know they made a couple updated versions for the Japanese audience, but I don't have those. I have these, and these make me happy regardless, so that's what we're going with. Anyways, well, you know, I guess I could leave these later here. All things considered, you know, have something to look at, or something, you know, to differentiate on the preview. Anyways, back in the olden days, most original Game Boys came with this thing, Tetris. Everyone's familiar with Tetris in some form or another, so I don't have to really touch on that. This is Tetris 2, which is, they have Tetris-like pieces, Tetris-like Tetrominoes, but they also have oddball pieces, and some of them have bombs. And you have to clear the bombs from the playfield, because that's what you did. I guess, I suppose, I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to keep this aside because I'm actually going to play this later. But, yeah, Tetris Plus, which I also have for the PlayStation 1. Yeah, Tetris Attack, which originally known in Japan as Panel de Pon, alternatively known as Pokemon Puzzle Challenger and Puzzle League in general. And this is probably the earliest version of the panel game, and it's not bad. I prefer the later ones. They're a little faster, but that one's not bad either. Speaking of which, Castlevania The Adventure, which I've always read as The Castlevania Adventure, just by the way it's the title just reads, but apparently it's The Adventure. Yeah, so it's Castlevania in the most basic sense, because you only have a whip, you move very slowly, you're fighting bats and stuff like that. But most of the trademark aspects of Castlevania are, anyways. Yeah, Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. You got to pick from 4 stages like Mega Man, but you don't get any power-ups, but you do get a proper Castlevania adventure, so to speak. Which is probably the best of the Game Boy bunch. Next up we have Castlevania Legends, which is not canon. But then again, nothing is Castlevania canon anymore. Does such a canon exist? Who knows? Unless it has erotic violence and is played from a pachinko machine. Anyway, so yeah, Mega Man, Dr. Wily's Revenge. And this is the first Game Boy game I ever bought. Technically I shouldn't say that. It was a Christmas gift, but I bought it and it was wrapped and I got it as a gift, and this was ages ago, so it's a long story. We got Mega Man 2. We got Mega Man 3. We got Mega Man 4. Wish I had Mega Man 5, but that's hard to come by, and also balls ass expensive. Last I checked. So now we got Pokemon Blue Edition. We got Pokemon Yellow Edition. And I have the original boxes for these. They're just stored away somewhere so that, I don't wreck them like I did the other ones. I generally don't toss away the boxes. I don't keep them out in the open unless it's like a complete set or if I have the room for it. But, the boxes I store away, I keep them in a safe place. And I know where they are and that sort of thing. But anyways, you got Donkey Kong, which is one of the few games that made use of the Super Game Boy, and it's an updated version of the original arcade game, but it has a bunch of extra levels and it's loads of fun. So, and that's that. You got Donkey Kong Land, which is an abbreviated version of Donkey Kong Country, but with new levels and things of that nature. Strangely enough, they would make a portable version of Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, but I've never played that one, so I wouldn't know. Alright, so next up we have Kirby's Dream Land, the one that started it all. And this was long before he had the ability to copy anyone's power by eating them. So, it's prototypical Kirby. Kirby's Dream Land 2. Loads of fun. This also has Super Game Boy compatibility, which meant extra color palettes and things of that nature. Something that is not included with the Kirby Dream Collection for the Wii, unfortunately. Or I don't think it is. If there is, I haven't found a way to enable those features, but probably not. Kirby's Pinball Land. It's pinball with Kirby. That's all I got, really. Yeah, WWF Superstars, which is a modest WWF game on the go. Yeah, it's from Rare, so it's not bad. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have King of the Ring, where it takes like 5 years to knock your opponent out, and you have to use punches and kicks. You have to use striking moves. If you try using a wrestling hold or wrestling moves, did fuck all damage. So yeah. You got Street Fighter 2, a version that shouldn't be any good, but actually quite surprised me somewhat. The only thing that really hampers it is the frame rate. It's kind of shit, but the gameplay is actually not that bad, all things considered. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Mortal Kombat, which is absolutely god-awful. You got Mortal Kombat 2. This one's actually a bit better. This is actually probably the best of the Mortal Kombat on Game Boys. Yeah, that sounded completely and utterly accurate. Mortal Kombat 3. I recall someone calling this dreadful. I didn't have as bad of an experience with it, but probably not the most ideal game to... anyways. Yeah, The Amazing Spider-Man. Not a bad game. Spider-Man 2. The idea was sound, the execution not so much, but anyways. Spider-Man 3. Meh. That's all I got. Meh. Not really gonna say a whole lot much else. You got Operation C, which is a Contra game. You got Contra: The Alien Wars, which is indeed a port or adaptation of Contra 3 on the Super Nintendo. It's an admirable effort, if nothing else. You got Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because why not? You got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Fall of the Foot Clan. Not a bad game for what it is. Relatively simple fare. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Back from the Sewer. Also, not that bad. And again, it's one of those cases where I kind of wish I was able to get my hands on the third game, Radical Rescue. But I'm guessing that one's hard to find and balls ass expensive. Okay. Super Mario Land. Not a bad Mario game. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. Considerably better Mario game. Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. And then it became the Wario Land series on the Game Boy Color. Yeah, Wario Blast featuring Bomberman. It's Bomberman with Wario, or Wario Blast with Bomberman, whatever you want to call it. Mostly a competitive game. It's our... I'll save that for another time, I guess. You got Dr. Mario. I guess you're all familiar with Dr. Mario, I guess. Yoshi's Cookie. Batman the video game, which unsuspecting folks familiar with the NES game would assume this is a portable version of that. It isn't. It's a one where you have midget Batman shooting a gun at midget criminals and stuff like that. And you have a Batwing level and all that, but it's alright. You got Batman the Animated Series. Actually quite impressed with this. I thought this was a pretty good game, but pretty hard game too. And on the other end of the spectrum we have Batman Forever. The less said the better. That's all I'm going to comment on. And now we just go through some odds and ends. So we got Pac-Man. Yep, Miss Pac-Man. You got Space Invaders, which, if you plug this into a Super Game Boy, you could play a Super Nintendo version of Space Invaders, which renders the SNES version of Space Invaders absolutely worthless. Yep, Bionic Commando, which is sort of like a remake, reimagining of the NES game, because a lot of the levels and the scenarios are similar. You got Solar Striker, which is sort of a basic shooter. One that deserves revisiting one of these days. You got Double Dragon, which is another incarnation of the Double Dragon game. You got Roland's Curse, which is sort of an overhead adventure game. Yeah. You got Nemesis, Gradius, whatever you want to call it. Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. I also have the DX version on the Game Boy Color, and fun fact, I had that before I had this. Like, I bought Link's Awakening for the Game Boy Color years ago, like many years ago, and this is more of a recent purchase. So even though technically I have no reason to get this version, you know, I still got it because it was fairly cheap, I guess, or something. I don't know, whatever. Metroid 2: Return to Samus. Adventure Island, which realistically is a port of Adventure Island 2 on the NES, but who's keeping count? Last batch here. Wizards and Warriors 10 Fortress of Fear. And it is a 10, not a X or a cross, because it says Chapter X in the title screen. So that's that. Balloon Kid, which is sort of a spiritual follow-up to Balloon Fight on the NES. You know, specifically the Balloon Trip portions of that game. It's Star Trek 25th Anniversary, which is sort of a scrolling shooter type thing with some away missions and stuff like that. Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters. Got F1 Race. Not bad. You got RoboCop, which is actually turned out a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. I was expecting garbage, and I thought, you know, this was pretty above average stuff at best. I did a video on that too. You got Stargate, which is a puzzle game and not an action game like you would get on the 16-bit consoles. And finally, well, not really finally, but you know, working with me here, Game & Watch Gallery, the first of the bunch, not counting a Japanese exclusive release. Anyways, technically speaking, that's my Game Boy collection, except for 3 other things that I'm holding back here. This is the 32-in-1 game cartridge. Despite the 32-in-1, it only has like 6 or 7 unique games, so not saying a whole lot. The next one we have here is Super 38-in-1. Again, presumably has less games than what's advertised on the box. And finally, we have this little gem, which is 32-in-1, no repeat, and this is pretty much the single best Game Boy. Well, technically this is Game Boy Color, so a lot of the games are like dual compatible, but pretty much the single best multi-cart because it doesn't lie. There are no repeats. Technically, you would call the 3 Pokemon versions a repeat, and it does include yellow, blue, and red. But the rest of the games, you know, if it says 32 games, you do have 32 unique games. And really a good deal and the source of many great reviews. You know, a couple of games featured, like the Drop Zone and Asteroids, came from this thing, and it's, yeah, anyways. So that's the Game Boy collection. I'm going to clean this stuff up, and I'm going to go to bed, because I just spent the past hour and a half just filming collection videos for your consumption. So I think I got a month's worth of stuff there. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. Till next time, take care. Thanks for watching. Good night.